The scene opened to southern uplands in Scotland, late April of 1455, a region of partly forested hills and lochs. It's early in the evening where this camp of several hundred Scots and several Cainites have stopped, with steep hills looming to the east and large expanse of woods to the west, from where just now a roaming band of marauders is emerging, having sprung out upon the encampment. Catching the Cainites by surprise. The marauders, clad in furs and pelts, most of them with streaks of black or blue war paint, horizontally stripped across the half of their face. A dozen or so wolves have also leapt out alongside them, but most daunting in appearance are the three hulking lupines that have emerged, 9 to 12 feet tall each, of hazel and smoke-colored furs, towering over the battle, sweeping with claws the size of small barrels, rending into the masses of Scots. Cormac and Thomas, we see you running through the camp, following closely behind the Scottish Cainites Malcolm and Clyde MacDougall, intent to charge into the fray as screams can be heard and battle is joined. Roll initiative.
As I do that, what are the odds that I recognize any of the hulking lupines as a previously encountered lupine form?
Be very difficult at a distance and in the dark, with little more than the moonlight. You can try. Make a perception investigation roll, difficulty 9.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I'm in the wrong game. I was in Reliquos.
Oops.
I'm like, where's Cormac?
Wow, 3 successes on difficulty 9. You don't recognize any of the lupines from what you can tell. You think back to the engagement you had and the ones that seemed to attack these black monstrosities which were about to devour you. And they were not the same size, not the same colors. These look different. Perhaps they even move different. But you're certain it must be the same kind of creature that you faced. Reroll that, Thomas.
Reroll. Oh.
Ignore the plus 8. Okay, so 10, 12, and Thomas will be in between. So I'll give you an 11. Oops. Just gonna put Clyde behind Cormac. Alright. So the scene before you is a great flurry of activity. These marauders are engaged with the Scots soldiers, some of whom are just now getting their gear together, so some of them don't even have armor or helmets on. And has created this large mob of fighting. Here and there you can see wolves, regular-sized wolves, attacking at the outskirts, picking people off. And here and there, interrupting this mob, you can see the towering figures of these 3 lupines engaged in the middle. The forest is behind them, the hills are behind you. There's something of a dirt road going along the path of the battle. Malcolm is first. He's going to get into position to the side of the closest of this lupines. There are 3, and the one closest to you is a smoky, grayish brown looking one, about 11 feet tall. It's maybe 15 feet ahead of you. Malcolm is moving to get into position, fighting his way through this crowd to get closer to it. That is what he will spend his time doing. Lupine continues to claw away at the Scots. Ahead of you, you can see limbs and blood fly through the light of the moon. You can see that the blood is collecting on the fur of this creature. That brings us to Thomas. What do you do in this scene?
Well, if Malcolm is moving to intercept, Tom is going to move to flank the very same lupine.
All right. You have to make your way past some of these marauders who are engaged in this big mass of battles, this clump of bodies. So you have to fight your way through them just to get into it. So instead of having you roll to defeat a bunch of people, I'll just have you roll to get into position. Give me a Dex and Survival, difficulty 6. Four successes. Alright, you're able to duck and parry where you need to, shove people out of the way, and manage to avoid the worst of the fighting. You find spaces where there's natural openings, and you get into a position where you could get into attacking range of this creature easily now. And Cormac, you see that Malcolm and Thomas have moved up ahead of you into the battle in the direction of the closest of these looming monsters. What do you do?
Cormac is terrified of the lupines. He makes no secret of that. He's going to engage some of the marauders to see if he can get them out of the way first.
Okay. There are marauders and Scots just ahead of you.
He's saving all the blood he can to fight the lupines, so he's not burning celerity right now.
Okay.
He will engage the nearest and attack.
Give me a Dex melee standard difficulty. Over time, as the successes you collect pile up, it will have an increasing impact on the size of these marauders. Alright, 2 successes. Any specialties there?
Sadly, no.
Okay. So you join battle besides these Scots, and you start fighting these men that look like savages. They fight fairly impressively. They're similar to how you've seen men fight from Ireland, in fact. More like brawlers than trained professionals or royal soldiers. You manage to bring down 2 of these men in seconds. Go ahead and describe Cormac as he's entering the battle.
Cormac runs forward, his cape billowing behind him, his sword raised, and he dives right into the middle of the fray. A whirlwind of flashing steel as he turns and digs deep into one man's shoulder, then brings his sword up under his arm into another man's belly, looking on them with pitiless rage, and all the while keeping an eye on the lupines nearby to see how they fare.
Right. Clyde is going to follow suit and join you back to back in fighting off these marauders instead of the lupine. So he will also be rolling to attack them. Just as soon as you finish one stabbing into this man's belly, you see another man's coming at you when Clyde interrupts the field of view and slashes him down and then turns to kill another just beside you. That ends the first round. Malcolm is now in position. He's gotten close enough to this lupine to attack. Lupine seems to sense him and turns. The massive maw of this creature lets out a horrendous sound, a snarl which is so loud and terrifying. It shakes the clothes on all of you who are close enough to engage it, like a tremor that runs out. I'm going to have Malcolm and Thomas roll courage. Face down this creature in toe-to-toe. So roll your courage, Thomas. Difficulty 6. The two of you remain steadfast. Neither of you are backing down from this creature, despite its clear ferocity. And Malcolm moves in to try and slash at this thing. He does not get any successes, narrowly escaped a botch. So Thomas, from your perspective on the opposite side of this lupine, and it's facing Malcolm, you can see he has this hatchet in his hand, and he moves forward quickly and jumps up, trying to slash at it. But the lupine bats him away, sending him rolling away, although he's able to get himself back up. Then the lupine strikes. Let me review my notes to remind myself on the stats of this thing. Well, first I'm going to ask, what is Thomas intending on doing next?
Well, if it's focused on Malcolm, he's going to attack it from the flank.
It appears to be focused on Malcolm at the moment, but you've seen how fast this thing moves. It could turn on you. Easily. And it's faster than you, so you're not sure what it's going to do. In the moment, yes, it is facing Malcolm. But your intent is to attack right now?
Why you do this to me, Vokar? Well, if Malcolm's down, in that case, I'm going to ready to parry, just in case it comes at.
Okay. Just going full defensive.
Yeah, I suppose.
Alright. Alright, roll your parry. This thing's making more than one attack in a turn.
Lightning reflexes apply?
I'll give it to you because I think that's very important. You're reacting to a very quick thing, so I'll give that to you, and that's necessary. 4 successes, you barely have enough time. This thing turns, moving quickly to attack Malcolm, and in one sweep, it cleaves away at much of his torso, sending him flying back, and you see blood and bits of him spewing out as he goes rolling across the ground. You see much of him was rendered in that one attack. And just in the flash of a moment, you see this thing turn almost impossibly fast, and you're just quick enough to bring your sword up and deflect it. And if you think you were even a fraction of a moment slower, it could have connected this and taken off some significant piece of you. And you narrowly parry this away. Describe Thomas in this moment.
So Thomas wheels his sword around as the creature comes at him and bashes into the thing's claw with the flat of the blade, knocking it away and dancing back half a step.
Alright, and you're on defensive, so that was your turn. Cormac, you are engaged with the brawlers, with these marauders. And because you're fighting, you don't see what's happening with the lupine right now, unless you want to divert your attention.
No, he's in the moment now.
Alright, you and Clyde are making progress on the center of this band of raiders.
This is life and death. Cormac is going to try to grab one of them to feed. He will need blood now.
Alright, you want to grab one of these marauders and just start feeding on the middle of the battlefield?
Yes.
Okay.
He can drink blood pretty quickly.
Sure. The strength brawl. Difficulty 6. And of course, they're not going to want to be grabbed. Alright, you net 1 success One of these brawlers seems to come at you with an axe, and you manage to move quickly enough to grab him at the hand where he's about to strike, and you've got him turned around in a good clinch. So you'll be able to feed in this coming turn. Clyde seems to see what you're doing, and he joins near to fight off some of the men who are trying to free your meal. And he's very successful. 5 men end up trying to attack you, and he slays all of them, one after another, almost using you as a distraction or bait. Ends the round. On to the next round. Malcolm is grievously wounded. You don't see him anymore, Thomas. You saw him go sprawling back with much of him gone, and he disappeared into the crowds of the battle. The lupine, now with only one target, looms over you, Thomas. There's a good 3 or 4 feet looking down at you. What does Thomas mean to do now?
Well, Tom has always been good at talking, and this thing is obviously not frenzying. He'll try and win it to his side. So he's going to schmooze a bit.
So your intent is to
Talk a bit and ready a parry while he's doing it.
Okay.
Talking is a free action. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, you're not trying your mental commands or anything when it's your
No.
turn? Okay.
No. That seems like a bad idea and a good way to piss it off more. And if he fails, he'll say, "We march on the Black Douglases. Join us."
Alright, so that's what you're going to say on your turn.
And then prepare to parry. I expect to split actions.
I won't make you split actions on saying that.
Well, no, I mean for 2 parries, just in case.
Oh, I see what you mean. Do you have any good on your celerity, do you? So in this, you won't be splitting actions. You'll do +1, -1.
Okay.
You'll be at higher difficulty, less dice. If it does attack multiple times.
Can I get? Can I roll to convince it to join us?
On your turn, we'll get to that. Don't worry.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Alright, roll your parry.
And I'm going to go ahead and spend a willpower on this because I really don't want to.
Okay. Six successes, an impressive parry. So this thing uses all of its weight charging at you, and you can tell it's trying to sweep you. With a long, lanky, and muscular arm, it tries to attack low, but you manage to deflect it, barely. And you said what you're gonna try and say?
Mm-hmm.
Your words seem to have no effect. Either you said the wrong thing, or it doesn't care. Maybe it didn't hear you. Maybe it's the wrong language. But it doesn't seem like this thing has untensed from battle. Cormac, you, meanwhile, have a man held tightly, and you can begin feeding at your leisure. You can take at least 3 per turn. I think you can take more if you mean to harm him, and I don't imagine you care much about him. So we'll say you can take up to 4 in this turn if you really want to.
And that he will.
Okay. Of course, all the struggle and yelling of this man depletes quickly once your fangs reach him. The kiss is the kiss. And this man loses all intent to battle once your fangs reach him. You drain him almost half dry in just over a few seconds. Clyde is going to continue to try and defend you. The mob is getting thick around you. But Clyde is an impressive warrior. It's getting increasingly difficult to keep them back, but he's quick and he's skilled. You're only barely able to tell what's going on around you, but you know Clyde is moving quickly to keep them back. Malcolm is still nowhere to be seen. Lupine means to continue its assault, and it seems to be getting angrier. Does Thomas mean to continue trying to talk it down? Or will he opt for another strategy?
Well, it's got the edge because it's going to go into attack before I get a chance to.
Yes, it is. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Sure.
Can I parry and then riposte? Like, is that a thing? I think that's a thing.
Riposte is a thing. It's all one action. I believe you basically parry at a higher difficulty with the chance to turn that into an attack. I'm going to review it really quickly because I don't see it that often.
Well, it's kind of my only option right now, so...
You have options. want to riposte?
Of course, I could try and transmit on it.
You want to try and what?
I'm thinking about entrancement for a second. It may be
Okay.
a terrible idea also.
Well, for your knowledge, riposte, you would be rolling your dex melee at 1 higher difficulty. That would increase his attack by 2 difficulty. But you would be at a multiple action penalty. So yeah, you would be. You're correct. You'd be rolling your defense, your parry, and then you'd be rolling for a riposte. And you are in defensive pose right now, so you could do that.
And the riposte would just be at a diff 7 instead of a diff 6, minus 1 die.
Because you're doing multiple actions, it starts at the first one. So your parry would be at diff 7 with less die. Your riposte would be at diff 8 because you don't have any celerity.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, multiple actions is very rough without celerity.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to try the entrancement route. It could go terribly wrong.
Alright, so you mean to try and entrance this thing on your turn. Come back to that. Jump the gun. I'm gonna have you parry. Roll your... So you'll be defending against 2 attacks. So you will be a normal parry for the first one, and then minus 1 die for the second parry. Alright, you parried the first attack.
Thank God, because that looks bad.
The second one's gonna connect. Do you have fortitude?
I do. I'm
Alright.
going to go ahead and spend a blood to auto soak 3 of that.
Okay. So you net 2 aggravated from what was going to be a very horrific strike on your arm.
I just got that.
Fortunately, it's not your sword-wielding arm, but it does make defending much more difficult. So this thing moves very quickly. Now it's attacking multiple times, and you can tell it's getting increasingly angry that you're able to keep it back so deftly. And with two more of these massive and fast-moving swipes of its long, lanky, fur-covered claws, it rends at you, and you lose your left arm. You net 2 aggravated. What's Thomas's mind at right now? Where is he mentally?
He is cursing Malcolm for engaging this thing and then retreating. Though those were grievous wounds. You don't get into a fight with a lupine and then not expect that. He's very in the moment, otherwise. Not really bemoaning his own choices or anything like that. That's not his style. He's very focused on his own movements and the movements of this thing, but there's no way he can best it physically, and he's very aware of it.
Is he afraid or angry? Is he...
No. He's kind of just very focused. There's concern that this ploy is not going to work. That's not really fear. It's... How do I phrase? He's far too focused on the whole not dying thing to be worried about being afraid of it.
You may not be afraid mentally, but your beast may be afraid, because it feels perhaps what you choose not to feel. So I'm going to have you roll your courage again, difficulty 7, now that you're facing this thing, and it is getting closer to tearing you apart. 1 success. So you hold your beast back. You can tell the beast within you wants to flee. It wants to escape this thing and do nothing but quit the battlefield. But you're in control, whether you decide to agree with it or not. So you want to try and trance this?
I do.
Alright. You will be rolling your appearance empathy. Spend a blood point, roll your appearance empathy. The difficulty here is going to be 9.
I'm going to spend another willpower because that's... If this goes wrong, it's going to go real...
Right. 2 successes. What does it look like in the middle of this battlefield with Thomas staring this thing down as he tries to entrance it? Describe him.
Thomas glowers at the thing, obviously displeased with it, and channels that beastly fear into righteous indignation as he stares it down, forcing or attempting to force his will against it.
And you do. You can see the eyes of this thing start to widen. You've seen that change in look, the change of certainty and confidence into regret and demure. It starts to shift its pose, less aggressive and more submissive. It's strange to see something so massive act in such a way to you. so you spend the turn doing this. Cormac, you're feeding on this man and you're draining him dry quickly. You do know the mob around you is growing quickly. I can only hold them back for so long.
Alright. So he's going to do that.
Okay, noted.
I can activate celerity reflexively, right?
Yes.
I will activate celerity, and I will take 4 more from him and then drop him.
Okay. You should be able to do something else.
Can he get any kind of view of what's going on with the lupine right now? He will distract his attention for a moment.
Yes, given that you're moving quickly enough, you're able to turn your head and quickly see that Malcolm appears to not be visible. He must have either gotten to somewhere else in the battle, or perhaps he's dead. You only see the lupine and Thomas, and miraculously, the lupine almost looks like it's becoming subservient. But I'll have you make a perception empathy roll, difficulty 9. In this moment, since you're paying attention. No
He's too
successes.
distracted.
It is. It's difficult to see across and get very good detail. It does look like this thing is not cowering, but certainly taking a less aggressive, violent stance towards Thomas, which you would not have expected to see.
He's going to hope for the best there and try to take down some more of these assholes. Sorry, arseholes.
Clyde finishes drawing his sword back from a dead marauder, and he turns to you, shouting over the noise of the battle around you. Malcolm! Have you seen Malcolm?
Shouting to who, me?
Yes.
He was fighting the lupine! Is all he can yell as he drops the body he was draining. Not there now.
He turns and looks towards the lupine as well. I'll make a roll for him. What is that thing doing? He turns to parry a blade away, looking at the lupine briefly. He spends his turn mostly defending. Malcolm is still gone. No one has seen him re-enter the battle. And now, Thomas, I'll have you make a perception empathy roll. I'll give you difficulty 8 since you're right there and you can see a little bit better. Even though this thing moves faster than you, you have a moment. 0 successes. Okay. What does Thomas mean to do on his turn now that it seems that he's gotten this thing subservient to him? Entranced.
He's still defensive because he's not sure just how susceptible these things are to his powers. But he's going to direct it to gather its kin and go.
Okay. So this lupine is looking at you, and it seems to have almost backed away for a moment. And its eyes are wide. But then you see it moves its large snout back left and right. It does it again as though shaking something off of it. The eyes blink. These great glowing eyes through the darkness. And you see it crouch down, staring at you, and its maw opens as it growls this howling snarl that shakes the entire battlefield. And Cormac, you can tell something has thoroughly enraged this thing. It no longer looks subservient. Something's changed again. Alright, roll your parry. Fortunately, you're ready this time. It seems whatever you were doing, it's shaken it off, and it's even more angry now. It comes back at you, trying again to sweep you, but you're prepared and focused. You deflect it again. You don't think... Go ahead.
Can I apply those as part of an attack with that parry? Because that's a lot.
Yeah, it's attacking with its bare hand, and you're deflecting with a blade. Although I'm gonna say, with one arm, I think your parries would be higher than difficulty 6. So I'm gonna take one success away from that.
Actually, it's one less die, but you either.
One less die? Okay.
Either way, you're fine. Do I get benefit from lightning reflexes?
Yes, I will give you that. So we'll say you net 7 successes, and you can roll 6 dice of damage. Plus your sword. And other things, obviously.
Sword's +1 or +2?
It's +2. Wow. 9 successes.
Fail all the way.
Alright, still, you net 4 successes in lethal damage on this thing as it shakes off whatever mental compulsion you were placing on it. It rages against you and strikes out, trying to sweep you. And you bring your blade at such an angle that it cleaves through much of its claw, going up its massive forearm. And it howls as Hot blood flies out and splatters across you. And Cormac, now that you're paying attention, you've seen all of this.
He cannot face that thing on his own. Cormac is pissed, though. Should I make a self-control roll?
I think that's very appropriate. Difficulty 6, so for you it's going to be 8.
What fun.
Brew hot blood.
Yep.
One success. Your beast is roaring, but you're able to keep it in control for now. What does Cormac do?
He's going to break free of this melee, hoping that Clyde can fend for himself, and he's going to engage with the lupine. His beast is enraged enough now that he doesn't care.
Okay.
I'm actually going to reserve 2 actions for dodging, and just 1 for attack.
Okay, we can do that. Clyde, meanwhile, since you left him, is fighting a larger mob, and he's drawn much of them towards him now that he's killed so many. And he must fight many of them alone now. You lose sight of him quickly as this mob seems to surround him, although based on the movements, you think he's doing very well somewhere behind you. He's single-handedly cut through maybe a dozen men in this time. And still, there is no sign of Malcolm. Lupine faces down Thomas again. Now that you have drawn blood from this thing, you sense its beast. This rage within it is almost uncontrollable now, as your own beast seems to react to it. Does Thomas mean to stand toe-to-toe with this thing still?
No, if he tries to run, it's going to chase him down, so better to parry it off. It's been going pretty well so far.
I'm going to give you a chance for... I'll let you do wit survival or intelligence survival in this moment. Standard difficulty. One success. You think if it was an open field and you ran, you're right. There would be nothing but its claws running into your back. But with all the men here, and you being much smaller than it, relatively, you could probably escape if you really wanted to. How long you can keep parrying it, you're not sure. So that's what I offer Thomas in this moment.
Am I aware of any place that I could bottleneck it?
Like I said, there's the forest behind it and this band, and the hills going up to your back. And then this dirt road kind of going up north to south, roughly. So there's not many good geographical areas you could bring it to get stuck or anything like that. You just think that in this mass of people, they'd at least be slowing it down while you got away to a horse or something.
But then I'd be throwing other people in its path.
True.
I'm sacrificing others for my own benefit. That's not really Tom's. No, he'll go ahead and continue parrying.
Okay. Go ahead and start rolling some parries.
Do you want me to just keep rolling, or do you want me to go ahead and do damage for that?
Roll your second parry.
Oh, this thing. Oh, this thing's frenzying.
Alright, you can roll damage on your first one. You netted 2 successes.
3.
Yes, 3. You're right, 3 successes, so add 2 to your damage. Okay. Alright. Netted 1 success on it, and you can see this close the wound you gave to its forearm, or your blade almost sliced it up the middle, almost separating the forearm into 2 pieces. At the furthest point near the elbow, where you think is this thing's elbow, the flesh is starting to knit together, almost like canites do. And this thing attacks again, 2 more quick slashes. It's no longer trying to be targeted or careful. Now it's just in a rage, an onslaught. And now it's just slashing wildly at you with everything it has. In the first attack, you managed to again deflect it, and you actually draw more blood, wounding it further. But the second attack is far more aggressive, and it's going to connect.
I'm gonna go ahead and auto soak again.
Okay, that's 3 fortitude.
Yep.
Alright, so you net 2 more aggravated. You're now at 4 aggravated. As this thing is not stopping. Describe Thomas as he's trying and slowly being whittled away. You're wounding this thing, but you're taking a lot of destruction for it.
He knows the lupine's worse for wear in the moment, but not by much. He's probably got a few more moments like this if nothing changes. Now he's starting to get worried.
You are now at wounded, so you are at -2. You were on the defensive. Cormac, you're moving up, and I'm gonna have you do the same thing that both Malcolm and Thomas did, to get past all the other men and the rest of the battle to the actual engagement, I'll have you roll your Dex Survival standard difficulty also. There are throngs of warriors to get through, but you do it. You move quickly and deftly, avoiding battle where you can, and as groups of duels intersperse and movement creates areas, you move through them and you engage in time to see Thomas, his left arm gone, and moving as quick as he can to parry this thing. You see this massive monster. Its right forearm is cut up the center, although it's quickly healing, and it just delivered a horrendous blow, rending across Thomas, and 3 massive claw marks going down Thomas's chest. Thomas is looking worse for wear. What does Cormac do?
Alright, he's gonna lay into this thing. He's gonna change his mind if possible about 2 dodge actions and keep just 1 with 2 attacks.
Okay.
Now I'm a little confused by the house rules as far as celerity goes. How exactly are you working this? Because according to the book, I don't have any dice penalties when I'm actively working celerity, but...
You shouldn't have any difficulty penalties. Let me review. So you spend 1 blood. So how many celerity actions are you doing?
A total of 3, 2 attacks and a dodge, because he can't do 3 attacks.
Okay. So you spend the 1 blood point, and so you still have the normal dice penalties, you just don't have difficulty penalties. So that's just regular rules, actually. So your first attack is -1, your second attack is -2 dice, and so on, but your difficulty is always regular.
Okay, got it. That works. Swell!
And this thing doesn't see you when you're at its side, so you're going to get an extra... we'll give you 2 extra dice for attacking its flank.
Swell. Alright. So, strength plus melee is, yes, I think?
What are you trying to do, strike it?
Yes.
That'd be dex melee.
Dex plus melee, excuse me.
Yep.
Difficulty 7, I believe, for sword.
6.
Regular attack is 6 unless you're targeting something.
No.
Alright. 3 successes, roll your damage.
Are you kidding?
X.
That is garbage.
Okay, that was your first attack. Did you say there was a second attack?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and roll it out. So it'll be 1 less die, but difficulty is the same. Okay, 2 successes on the attack. Roll your damage.
That's better.
There you go. 2 successes. This thing, it seems, is almost made out of stone. Your two attacks come out quickly, and one of them is very brutal, but it's so massive, the blade is turned aside by the hide of this monster, which winces briefly at the attack. Describe Cormac in this scene.
Cormac dashes through the men that were surrounding him, moving so fast that most of them probably can't even see where he's gone, and runs up on the lupine with a quick slash to its belly, which is quickly deflected, and then an overhead chop down into its leg, also deflected, but with great power behind it. Enough to draw its attention anyway.
Clyde is going to be spending the turn doing something that you can't see because you're engaged. All right. Still no Malcolm. You have gained its attention, Cormac. For better or worse. You said you're reserving a celerity action. You're spending blood for the next turn as well?
This is still the same turn, right? I should have at least one dodge available.
This is a new turn. Malcolm begins the turn.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Then yes.
Okay. And Thomas, you see now that Cormac has joined the battle. He's struck twice against this thing, and it looked like mighty blows that should have found purchase, but this massive monster is just too strong. Thomas maintains parry.
Well, is it turning on Cormac or no?
It looks like it noticed him, certainly. You can tell this thing isn't thinking, it isn't thinking or moving as carefully as it was before when you first fought it.
Yeah, Tom's gonna continue to parry because... And there's no nearby cover. If he runs off, it's definitely going to chase him now, for sure. Yeah, he's going to maintain parry.
Well, like I said, there's people. That's really your cover. And then behind you is the camp.
Are the Marauders currently outnumbering our men, or no?
Give you a perception, alertness, or perception survival, difficulty 8, to make that assessment quickly in this moment, in the midst of it. You're not sure. There's too much going on around you, and this imminent threat is consuming most of your attention. It's tough to get a good vantage of what's going on in the midst of all this.
Can't really afford to screw up another parry. Yeah, Tom's going to beat a hasty retreat towards a knot of fighters.
Okay. Give me a Dex Athletics, difficulty 8, and you can withdraw from this before whatever happens. Okay, 2 successes. So you manage to withdraw, seeing that Cormac is here and the monster is briefly distracted. You turn in between two groups of men, these Scottish soldiers, these marauders, and you have to do a dip in between them. Describe Thomas and where he's going and what's going on.
Tom missing most of his left arm and having been rent down the torso pretty severely, gestures for Cormac to flee as well, and then kind of half dives into a knot of people fighting.
All right. And stepping away from initiative for a second, Cormac, you see this is happening also. And the lupine is turning on you. It seemed like it was about to turn back to Thomas, only to see that he's gone, and it's moving quickly to turn on you now. And its wounds
it's
are
time to
healing
go.
fast.
Time to go.
Okay. I will give you the same optional roll to withdraw outside of initiative.
And withdraw he shall.
Alright, you also withdraw from the engagement with the lupine. Just in time as you see it was about to hulk forward at you when you dip in between the soldiers and move in the direction of Thomas. So Thomas, you get into this knot of soldiers and you're mostly able to avoid the worst of it. These men are already engaged in battle. And now that you're away from the lupine, although you are severely wounded, you're able to assess better. It looks like the Scots are losing overall. You still don't see Malcolm. But I'll have you both make a perception alertness roll. Difficulty 7. It's difficult to see through the battle. You have very little light out here besides the moon shining down.
And that's botch.
Alright. So Cormac, you're trying to assess everything going on around you and actually trip over a dead body while you're scanning the area. And Thomas, you see behind where most of the men are fighting, this knot you've gotten into, you see a rider. You see Clyde atop a horse, and with two horses behind him by the reins. They're galloping along the back, almost scanning the battle. And he calls out to you. To me!
Did I see Cormac go down?
We'll say yes, since you got so many successes.
Well, he'll go over and drag him up by the arm and lead him towards Clyde.
Okay. So Cormac, because you got help, you won't need any roll to get up. Thomas stopped long enough to help you up with his one arm. And the two of you are making your way through the last edges of the battle. But you can hear behind you the growl and the snarl, the sound of men screaming. You think both Scots and Marauders are being rended behind you, and it sounds like it's getting closer. This thing might still be coming after you.
I told him we couldn't win! But he'll start picking up the pace. Where are we going?
Horses. And he'll point towards Clyde.
Okay. I'm gonna need one more Dex Athletics from both of you. Difficulty here is gonna be 7. You need to make it to these horses before whatever's behind you catches up. You don't dare look back, but you can hear it. You can hear it getting closer. The sound of its massive steps behind you. You think it's just throwing people this way and that without concern of which side they're on. You just hear the sound of screams behind you. When you make it to the horses and almost leap across the saddle as Clyde begins riding forward. You can see now that Malcolm is heaped over the back of his saddle. He's barely in one piece. And Clyde begins riding off immediately, quitting the battlefield. And the two of you are now mounted. Do you continue riding with him?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Okay. You ride off. And behind you, you only hear the sound of a horrific and daunting howl. It echoes through the valleys behind you. You ride hard into the woods, and it seems like it stays up, keeping up with you for some time. But you look back once and you no longer see it. You think, for now, you've lost it. And the four of you ride into the forest away from the battle. And the scene fades. And we will transition scenes. Elsewhere, south of Hadrian's Wall, and more deeply mired in the politics of undead society, walk monsters of a different kind. Elined and Robert, both of you, in the peace and relative tranquility of the city of York, still have most of the next fortnight to plot or prepare in quiet courtrooms and serene lounges tended to by waiters, bringing you goblets full of vitae as you desire. With time enough to decide what you wish to do next. The Duke of York will be marching south to intercept the king's counselors and their retinue, but that's still some time off. Robert, you have made some progress in your plot to uncover this alleged symbol, the Volknot. Supposedly somewhere on Ragna as a sign of her betrayal to Canute, her sire and the previous York prince. Through the memories of this unsuspecting young servant, you've already seen far more of Ragna's bare ivory skin than likely any other Cainite in the world. And you've implanted an idea in his mind that he should seek to view more, so that he may draw this graceful beauty. It's a few nights later when both of you, Robert and Elined, hear of a brief scuffle in the castle. No blood is drawn, it's a very small affair, but word reaches you that on one of these evenings, a servant was imprisoned very abruptly. He's supposedly held in the dungeon of Castle York. His fate is not publicly known, or has not been decided yet. Elined, what would you like to do at this time? You still have most of the remaining 2 weeks.
Let's see, she's already done her planning, and these soldiers are trained enough as it is. Unless I can double down on my planning and make additional rolls based on that.
I'm gonna say you've done as much preparation for a battle that you know very little about that can be done right now.
Very well.
Otherwise, keeping status quo for the next couple weeks.
Her main focus would be the status quo, but since most of her stuff is, for the most part, handled, she would be more available than she was in previous weeks should someone seek her.
Okay. And Robert, what will you be doing?
Well, the servant is now in the dungeons. Does Robert know where this is?
Yes. You have status enough to get down there, and it's not difficult to request a visit if you really wanted to.
Now, is this the only, I guess you wouldn't know unless you went down there how many are kept in the dungeon.
Correct.
No, instead he's going to go with a different plan. He'll try to find a moment to get the chambermaid.
You're gonna try and get the chambermaid?
Yeah, it's whenever she is isolated, he'll try to invade her mind.
Okay. Give me a wits etiquette. Find an appropriate opening that's not obviously strange, where you can just kind of watch her in decent proximity. With standard difficulty.
Huh.
You're not sure when would be a good time Of course, you see her here and there, but you're not seeing anything quite as ideal as with this first servant when you found him. So it's kind of a gamble if you want to try this. You're never really confident about the timing. You can still try, you're just not sure about the context or circumstances, if you'll be interrupted or not, these kinds of things.
Her route, does it take her by his chamber at all?
By your chamber?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. She makes the rounds to empty everyone's chamber at some point, and fortunately she makes her rounds to yours as well.
Then he'll probably attempt to lure her in whenever she passes by.
Okay, how do you lure her in?
Oh, when she comes by, he'll make eye contact, awe her in, and invite her in. As simple as that.
Alright. You see her on one of these nights, and she has nothing in her hands at this time, dressed very plainly in peasant's outfit, looking very much like Elined. You actually think it's Elined at first, but you realize it's just the chambermaid. And she makes her way into your room and smiles politely, as she has done in the past.
Sorry, did you say he already lured her in, or he's just now meeting her?
It looks like she's about to go into your room right now to empty the chamber pot, although it seems never to have anything in it. She still seems servant bound to try.
Oh, perfect. He will not impede her, and he'll actually invite her in.
She smiles and averts her eyes, looking to the ground in deference, and moves to check your chamber pot, which is, of course, empty, and means to leave.
Do stay a while. And tell me, what is your name?
She looks to you a bit concerned, perhaps even surprised. Olga, my lord. I must get back to my work. I apologize.
Oh, they keep you on a tight schedule.
She nods and bows her head respectfully and then tries to leave.
He'll use awe at this moment.
Okay. Go ahead and roll it. That's... say charisma performance. Yes. They spend a blood point, charisma performance, difficulty 7. Right. You've definitely got her attention, and she seems enraptured by you, and unable to take her eyes off you. What kind of impression are you trying to give her? Just like a 1 or 2 word description.
Friendly, charming.
Okay. Yeah, she seems to smile more genuinely. Definitely has, you definitely have her attention now.
You can take a break for a moment. I just would like to talk.
Well, I suppose it could not hurt. She smiles in a moment and nods and finds a seat to sit down, rarely leaving eye contact.
Mogul, is it? Where did you grow up?
Oh, here, my lord. My family had a farm. We lost it, but I found work here.
Very good, and how do you like it here?
Oh, it's wonderful, my lord. It's safe, good, honest Christian work. Doing good work for the Duke and his lady. She smiles again.
His lady?
Yes. And she smiles. He has a wife, my lord, of course, but as I'm sure you know, a mistress as well.
Quite standard, yes.
His mistress treats me quite well. I do not fault him for it.
Ah, yes. You must go to where the Duke stays, is that correct?
Yes, my lord. Occasionally.
I see, I see. And tell me, have you been to the kitchens?
I have, my lord.
What would you say those in York prepare best to eat, that is? At this point, as he's making her think about this, he's going to attempt to invade her mind.
Alright. So her eyes kind of go off and down to the left in thought as you invade her mind. If you roll your intelligence subterfuge, your difficulty here will be 3.
Okay.
Five successes, so just as successful as the servant you found. You can get to the deepest reaches of her mind. Even implant some if you wanted. What are you looking for as you quickly, almost as if going through, as if diving into the center of a lake, you pass through the surface level and you see thoughts of meals that she's cooked and others have cooked. You move past those quickly to her daily life. She's groped often by some of the nobles and made fun of by others. She's a bit bigger, but not very much. Her home life is very mundane. Her husband occasionally beats her, but nowhere that can be seen. She has 2 children. They're very young, 2 boys. She worries about their future. She feels the conflict that seems to be growing endangers the land. She feels she's not a very good Christian for all of her thoughts. The deeper you go, the sadder you think this woman is.
He's going to focus more on the layout of the upper level, assuming she has been to every room and who are actually inside which room.
It takes you some time. You see more images as you think of places that she's been. You see hallways passing by. You see Jesper of Jomsburg and Dorothy once in a while. You even see Ragna once. And you see the rooms. You never see the Duke of York and Ragna together, but you do see that she seems to meet, or at least briefly encounter, the nobles, Salisbury, Warwick, emptying chamber pots. Most of this happens during the day.
Robert's going to make a mental note of these locations, perhaps mapping the area out as best he can.
That could be difficult based on just of her memories and trying to do all of this kind of very abstractly. Give me an intelligence. Do you have enigmas?
No.
Let's see what else might be applicable here. You might try at a higher difficulty. Give me one moment. Intelligence investigation. Difficulty 8. If you want to map the highest level of the Castle of York based only on the memories of this chambermaid.
Robert is going to focus his will and attempt to make this give as much clarity as possible.
Okay.
Spending willpower.
You managed to avoid a botch. You start to confuse some images, some towers with others, and some levels. It's difficult to really map this place out. She doesn't frequent it quite enough, or perhaps not in regularity enough for you to get an entire picture. And also, just manipulating the mind in this way is a very alien experience. It's not cut and dry, it's not simple. It's like trying to organize water in a pool.
Is he able to at least figure out which rooms are which when he does see them?
Yes, you think after a while you see some nobles in some rooms more often. So you think you have an idea of at least who is in which room. If you were to go upstairs, you might recognize the doorway before going in.
Alright.
Although reconstructing all of this is not likely.
I'll search her mind if she clears out the chamber pots for the dungeon as well.
She does, although it's much less regular. And the pots are usually much more full. It's a much more acrid and foul experience going down there.
And how many prisoners has she seen?
Maybe 10 or 12.
Okay. Don't suppose any of them are someone Robert would know, another Cainite perhaps?
You don't recognize any Cainites. You do see the man that you were invading the mind of before. It's very new.
Uh-huh.
Most of her memories don't involve him, but the most recent ones do. She has pity for him, but also some disgust from what she's heard.
Oh ho. What indeed has she heard? Has this man actually been able to succeed in his goal? Perhaps not the drawing, but the viewing.
There's this image, this kind of almost walking motion. You have a memory of walking down the hall and seeing this man who looks scared and sad, and at first you feel bad that this man you've worked alongside is down here in the dungeon. Then you remember hearing some of the other servants and staff commenting that he's down here because he was trying to peek upon the mistress of the Duke of York, and he was caught. They think he'll be hung.
Tragedy. All right. He won't implant anything in her mind now. He's mainly seeking for information at this point. In fact, he may even be done unless... Has she had any interactions with the Duke or in Salisbury?
No. In the brief time that she saw them, they didn't even react like she was a person or in the room. It's almost like they didn't even see her. She simply did what she had to do and left, and never even so much was acknowledged.
All right, then.
Okay. And then she finishes saying what she's saying. You're not sure what she said because you were invading her mind, but she is staring at you with a pleasant smile. Are you fond of it?
Well, I'm most all right. Just looking upon you, I sense sadness. I don't know why.
Her smile fades somewhat. Is that obvious? I apologize, my lord. I do not mean to be foul company.
No. We all have our problems. Perhaps I can give you a little something extra. And he'll get like a silver or something.
My lord, you're very generous. She takes it and looks to you, smiling.
Robert smiles as well. It was a pleasant conversation. I've been so bored here.
Well, I hope that your stay is more eventful. Pleasant, even. And she rises and smiles, nodding to you. Seems hesitant to leave, but I think her work beckons her. She looks over her shoulder multiple times.
Robert will just smile as she departs.
And off she goes. What will Robert do next? Now that Olga, the chambermaid, is back to her regular life.
What indeed? At this point, how guarded is the entrance to the dungeon? Perhaps he'll focus on that.
It's very well guarded. There's 2 men at the doorway at any time. It's an iron wrought door. It reminds you of the entrance to the asylum back in Canterbury, in fact. Tower for the mad and the hysteric.
Guards never drift asleep during their shift.
Well, they're fairly attentive from what you can tell. Although you also know it wouldn't be unheard of to request to visit with a prisoner.
No good will come from that. As far as Robert is concerned, he wants to be as incognito as possible.
Okay. Meanwhile, Elined, during this time,
I do have one thing that I came up with for her to do.
Go for it.
Well, she has sewing, and she does need to craft herself a new set of clothes. Just a matter of gathering materials for doing such a thing.
Okay. What kind of clothes do you want to craft for yourself?
Much the same as before, she dislikes standing out.
Alright, so some very simple peasant or servant garb.
More along the lines of peasant clothing, yes.
Okay. I will have you roll your dexterity crafts. To make a full outfit of peasant garb, we'll need, let's say, 3 successes. Getting the material for something so simple isn't that difficult. You're not trying to make anything elaborate or expensive or showy.
Mm-hmm. I'll spend a willpower on this, because I only got 4 dice in this pool. I didn't need the willpower. I have a 5 success outfit.
You go above and beyond in making yourself look not above and beyond at all. You make the most archetypal peasant outfit. You could blend into any farming or agricultural parish you wanted to in England. And it fits you just right. I'll let you add any details you want to. Secret pockets or anything like that.
Of course, she would have hidden pockets.
During this time, you are visited a couple times, mostly by Jesper or by Ragna's ghoul, Mr. Sharp. And it's largely about logistical issues and keeping you abreast of what they're working with as far as supplies and soldiers. It's explained to you that you will be you'll be given command of the army, although the difficulty in some peasant woman commanding thousands of men that should be under the command of the Duke of York requires a bit of nuance and care. And so you're given instruction on how you'll be kind of secreted away into an area where only the Duke will hear from you, and you've been given assurances that he's been made much more flexible and compliant to the idea of taking orders from someone like you. And so your orders become his orders, and his orders become the commands for the army. You're familiar with this arrangement.
Yes, it sounds much the same as some of our earlier expeditions.
Of course, you won't be able to claim any public responsibility for any great success or failure, but the underworld, the world of Canaanites, might know different.
As to be expected. After all, it's better if the masses don't know she's the one that's giving such plans. She has less of a chance of being killed that way.
And so you will be mostly with the reserves near the Duke of York, but not exactly in sight when battle is at hand. Is there anything else Elined wanted to do, or anybody she wanted to talk to during this time?
The only thing she'd have to do is make arrangements so when the time comes for them to leave, her ghoul can stay here out of the way of harm.
Alright, so you want Gertrude to stay here. She does protest. She does want to be at your side when this happens. Or at least nearby, maybe with the camp followers.
She'd much rather Gertrude remain.
She, of course, obeys, although obviously displeased, concerned for your safety. But she agrees.
She will attempt to ease that concern by mentioning that the previous major expeditions did not go poorly. In fact, one of them was a resounding success.
She makes a kind of offhand remark about not being concerned about the enemies across the field, but the ones that are at your back. But she agrees not to fight it anymore. Robert, do you have any other plans for your captive servant under lock and key and heavy guard?
I wait until the servant's execution. If it's, well, he'll probably, ask the guard if they know when his execution is planned. And if it's during the day, he'll wait until then. If it's at night, he'll have to make other plans. I mean, in reverse.
Okay. The guard tells you that there's a little bit of indecision It seems like, from what he can tell, many would say that execution for a servant trying to be a voyeur is a bit excessive. The standard penalty would be to take an eye out. Although it sounds like someone higher up is pushing heavily for him to be executed. Although it's not clear where that's coming from. And so, it's not clear when he is going to be executed or have his eye put out, or what's going to happen to him, or when. But the time is ever approaching when the army is going to march. You think maybe a week now, maybe less.
A week to work. Well, he's going to ask the guard if he knows who's going to have the final say.
He expects that the Duke is almost certainly likely to have the final say.
Makes sense. Well, no more from this angle then. You'll thank the guard for any information, and...
You also know that there's no rush on a decision. It would be very common for someone in his position like this to remain in the dungeon maybe months, maybe even forgotten about.
Well, after the army left. Alright then, this will be put on hold then, for now.
Okay.
No further plans with the prisoner for the rest of this week, as is. Perhaps he'll seek Dorothy out and see if she's made any progress.
Progress on what specifically?
Well, whatever she's planning, he doesn't expect her to just be doing nothing during this time. But perhaps she is.
It's been about a week since you last saw her. It seems as though she's mostly waiting to hear back from Randall, who agreed to look into this supposed spy master, Sienna the Virgin. So it seems like she's trying to play pretty low-key in these last 7 days and hasn't been trying to draw much attention to herself. It does not sound like she will be brought along on this campaign.
Okay. Has she learned anything new about the spy we're seeking?
She hasn't heard back from Randall yet, and she doesn't know anyone who knows anything or either. Yeah, not that much time has passed since you left.
He'll actually, maybe he'll enlist her help to speak with the prisoner.
Okay, what do you propose? And do you explain what your ability and goal here is?
Well, he'll explain that what happened recently may be a benefit to them, and he needs a chance to speak with the prisoner that was captured.
She seems to catch on that somehow this man is in your employ. She thinks that the rumors of him trying to be a voyeur make more sense now. And she also explains that Ragna's no fool, and if Dorothy is seen trying to interrogate this man with the allegations upon him, it might not be that large of a leap for Ragna to put the pieces together, given that it's clear Ragna does not trust Dorothy.
How many guards are in the dungeon? Just the ones posted at the entrance?
Yes, 2 at the entrance, and then there's a little metal slot so you can see in, kind of going down the hallway, the cells on either side.
Hmm. Hmm. Perhaps he'll brainstorm with her a way to distract the guards for a good amount of time. Enough time for at least Robert to see into the mind of this man once again.
Keeping both of them distracted and away from the door long enough for you to sneak in to get to this man and search his mind is a tall order, but she thinks that's maybe one of the safer ideas, and she agrees to try. I'm gonna roll for her. She pulls it off. You're waiting behind a wall, and you see, you're not sure exactly what she says, but she does have a devilish grin when she passes by again, and the 2 guards follow after her, giving you enough time to get inside.
And Robert will be quick about this. Go ahead.
You're very fortunate in that it seems like the door is unlocked. Maybe they forgot. I'm gonna have us take a break right here since we're 2 hours in. I really have to use the restroom, so we'll break here and come back.
Swell.
All right.
Be back in 15.
I'm back.
I'm back also.
I'm back.
Okay, stop talking about me.
I am here.
Good. So everyone's doing really important stuff, and I don't want to glaze over anybody's stuff. So it's been kind of imbalanced, and it's going to continue to be pretty imbalanced in time-wise until stuff settles down again. So bear with me on timing of stuff.
That's completely understandable.
Okay. We will get back into it. So, Robert, you make your way into the dungeon as Dorothy has lured these 2 guards away. You make your way down through the cells of desperate men and women hoping to hear good news of release, perhaps, or perhaps someone to visit them. You pass many of them until you find the servant that you spoke with before, who looks to you with much hope. He recognizes you and thinks perhaps you're here for him somehow. He cautiously advances to the bars of his cell, holding at them and looking at you through them. My lord?
Alas, I am not your savior this day.
He looks down, dejected. Are they going to hang me? That is what I hear.
That decision is still undecided. But do not hope for anything less than the harshest punishment.
He looks to you with tears welling up in his eyes. Whatever hope he might have had just was crushed. He begins to sob quietly. I don't know why I did it. I can't even draw.
Robert gives him a sad look. There's no way you could have known that the lady would take it so seriously.
He looks up to you, kind of sniffling. It's her. She's the one. She's the one who's calling for it. The Duke, he was just going to put out my eye. But I know it. She didn't want me to live.
Why would that be?
He shakes his head. I barely saw anything.
Anything out of the ordinary?
He looks at you, confused.
It seems to me if she has a secret, perhaps that she is a witch.
Good luck convincing the Duke of that.
Oh, no doubt she has her completely entranced. But did you see anything? Anything odd?
He kind of looks down and thought, why do you care so much? I'm going to die. I saw a beautiful woman in a robe. I'm going to die for that.
Yes, that is most unjust. Well, go with God then. And Robert will attempt to invade his mind.
Alright, same roll. Difficulty 3. Any specialties there?
That would apply to this in particular? Let me see. Finding weaknesses. I suppose not.
No, but 4 successes is almost as deep as you got before. Looking through the recesses of his mind, of course thinking back of the times he's seen Ragna, most notable is his most recent memory. It's also the one he has attached the most emotion to. You feel fear and anguish when you remember through this man what you've seen, because you know it means you're going to die for it. The memory you experience is of walking through the stone hallways, and you can hear voices. You recognize the Duke and Ragna's. You're not supposed to be up here. There's no reason for you to be up here. Yet here you are. You peek around the corner into the great chamber of the Duke. And you see him getting his clothes back on. And just coming out of view from the right, Ragna emerges. You see her hair is down and a bit messy, and she's in this very dark, deep burgundy nightgown robe. And her bare feet step across the floor. And suddenly, she turns to you. And you can see the robe is open down the center, exposing all of her alabaster flesh. Perfect. Unnaturally perfect. Almost angelic in this mind that you are invading. And you see around her upper right thigh something strange. A sash. Kind of dark cloth bound tightly close to the pelvis, but very high up. Doesn't seem like anything's attached to it, but other than that, she isn't wearing anything. And the robe comes down on either side. The Duke immediately runs forward and grabs you, throws you down, calls for guards before Ragna has time to react. The rest of this is him being detained, the Duke enraged. Here and there you see Ragna in the distance looking at you with some concern.
That Robert will leave the vision and leave the dungeon.
You're putting a good word for the Duke. He calls back to you, kind of pressing his face against the bars to look at you.
Robert turns back and gives him a sorrowful look. And if I have a chance.
You turn to look back to exit again. And you see Prince Ragna standing there. Dressed as she usually is, in a long, fairly conservative dark crimson dress. Her hair done up. Looking stoic. Giving you a quizzical look. Robert. How very interesting.
Why? Good evening. I did not expect to see you at all.
I could say the same. I wonder what curiosity you have for this man. And she looks behind you briefly.
Well, hearing such an event, I simply couldn't satiate my curiosity by standing by.
It is unbecoming of a lord of your status to entertain such rumor.
Well, I had precious little else to do before the campaign.
Perhaps I shall set you to finding me new guards. It seems they've abandoned their post, and in fact, left the door unlocked. Can you believe it? So easily they are distracted. She looks off. I would have thought this castle more secure. But one cannot trust anyone these nights. And she looks back to you.
Why, yes. I did not know that your guards are prone to leaving their post.
Or leaving this dungeon unlocked. Curious, is it not? And then to find you here.
I assumed the unlocked door was just opportunity. I had no knowledge of why that was. Do you suspect something else?
She smiles faintly. And then turns away to leave, departing the dungeon away from you at a calm pace.
Well, Robert will not remain there. He'll continue on.
And you leave. With perhaps new knowledge. Or perhaps questions. And the scene fades. The rest of the week is uneventful. At the end of it, the troops are organized, the caravans formed, and you both prepare to depart with the main group. Departing south, you leave on May 1st with thousands of soldiers. it ends up taking you a little bit more than 2 weeks before you have marched not very far from London, in fact. Eventually, you reach a place not far from London. You're in the area of St. Albans, which I would say both of you are familiar with. It's a relatively small town north of London. Your army has camped out. Peace talks are expected, as it seems the king's forces, along with his advisors, the nobles, Edmund Beaufort, the Duke of Somerset, and several others supporting him, are in negotiations with the Duke of York. Of course, their force is much smaller than yours, having only the retinues of the nobles. The forces they were happy to move across with the Duke of York has well over 6,000. Eventually, you are told, Elined, because you are involved in some of these meetings, that the king rejects any offer, any demand made by the Duke to let them pass in exchange for the counselor, specifically Somerset, Edmund Beaufort. He promises to destroy every mother's son, and that they shall be hanged, drawn, and quartered. On May 22nd, 1455, the battle is set to begin. You are brought near the reserves to help command. Now we will be making use of some supplemental mechanics here from the spoils of war. So you have here the army as it is laid out according to the commanders, the Duke of York and the Earl of Salisbury and Warwick. Warwick on the left flank, Salisbury on the right flank, and the Duke commanding the center and the reserves. But because you have the advantage here, you are able to decide how you would like this organized. So this is how it's been organized, unless you think that it should be reorganized. Across the field, established in the town, you know that the king, along with his counselors, are holed up near the center of the town, and they've fortified with some palisades and ditches. The left flank and the right flank are at the edge of town, and they do not have as good of defenses. So, you have a number of units here, and basically, battle occurs in simultaneous moves. How much do you know about this, and how much do you need to explain?
I have a base understanding of the supplementary mechanics.
Okay. So it is similar to combat by individuals, but with some important distinctions. everything kind of happens at once instead of in turns. So you'll decide what the left flank, the center, and the right flank do for the round. And they will also have the same decisions, and then all at once it gets decided. So losses happen on both sides simultaneously. You have reserves of heavy cavalry, ghoul knights, and Cainite cavalry. Basically, one unit of these heavy cavalry is 100 knights, and you have 50 ghoul knights, along with several coteries of Cainites that have banded together for whatever reason, perhaps blackmail or boons, perhaps a chance to earn glory, in service to Ragna. So your heaviest cavalry is in reserve, and that's also where the Duke is, and you are. And you can keep them in reserve or move them to any of the positions.
Is there anything in the terrain outside of what is already listed on the image here that would be a hindrance or to our benefit? Anything that can be exploited as such?
Not significantly. You have a major number advantage over their forces. Their defenses at the center seem to be the best that they have, and otherwise the field, while not exactly open, doesn't really give any significant advantages either way. And the values I gave, which are just kind of written, are the collective values of each of these units. And if you click each one, you should all be able to click these tokens. The red is melee attack, the green is range attack, if any, and then blue is 2 values. The first one is defense, and the second one is maneuver, separated by a decimal because they didn't give me a 4th color. So swordsmen have 2 in the red, so 2 melee. They don't have any ranged attack. They have 2 defense, and they have 1 maneuver. And that represents 500 swordsmen. And these flanks, and these centers, each of these boxes attack as a whole. So all of their values are pooled, and they can either make a charge, they can attack from range, you can hold, you can pull them back, or you can try to maneuver. Because you have so many light cavalry on the left flank, and you would know this because you're a very high level tactician, you have a great deal more maneuverability and a capability to outflank their left flank. So taking a step back, what is Elined's overall strategic goal here?
Her main ideal is to keep her eye out for any weaknesses in their formation, any areas that can be easily overtaken, distract them to one side to overtake them from another.
Well, you think overall their position is weak because you have more soldiers just by number, and pound for pound you have a lot heavier soldiers. You have more knights, you have ghoul knights and Cainites here. You think it would be trivially easy for your light cavalry to outmaneuver their left flank because of how quick they are. And also, because of your previous planning, I'm going to give you an extra die to all rolls here. So we'll start with the left flank, comprised of 1 unit each of peasantry footmen, 500 archers, that's 1 unit, a unit of swordsmen, and 4 units of light cavalry. So 400 light cavalry make up the 4 units. Collectively, they have these stats: 12 in melee, 3 in range attack, 12 in defense, and 15 in maneuver. So they could make a melee attack or a range attack, or they could try and maneuver around, which is kind of like a gamble. If you succeed on a maneuver, you could double the number of units you take out, or you could risk twice as many if you fail. Although with that much of an advantage, there's not much of a risk here.
Indeed, she intends to take out their left flank by maneuvering, sending them forth.
Okay. So your left flank is committed to try and outmaneuver the left flank of theirs, and I'm just going to use the same side just to avoid confusion. You're not going to know what they're going to do until it happens. What would you like your center flank to do? You can hold.
The red center or the purple center?
You're red. Sorry, I probably should have explained that to begin with. The Lancasters are on the other side. I might change the colors of these going forward now that I think about it. But for now, you're red and they're purple.
Alright.
We'll resolve the left flank first and just keep it simple.
Okay.
So for your maneuver, you'll be rolling all of your maneuver dice. So your swordsmen have 1, your archers have 1, your peasants have 1, and your light cavalry have 3 each. So I did the math for you. It's 15 altogether. So you'll be rolling.
Is that plus the 1 from prior planning?
No. So you can add 1 to that. And the other thing we're going to be doing here is the advantage of commanders of the battle. Basically, having you roll your charisma leadership. This is apart from any planning. This is just being a commander.
Alright.
I'm going to roll for the opposing side.
I do have a specialty. And that would be 5 successes.
Their commander, Edmund Beaufort, will roll. Alright, so you beat him, and basically that means you gain an additional die on top of that. So now you're at 2 extra die on all of your rolls for commanding. So that means you'll be rolling 17 dice for your maneuver on the left flank.
And what is the difficulty? Is it standard?
Yeah, every roll here is going to be standard. And basically they're going to try and soak it with their defense. Or their maneuver, excuse me.
That's a lot of dice.
Yep. They only have one maneuver, so they don't really have a chance to outmaneuver you, and they only have 3 defense, so they can't really defend against it either. So even if they rolled all of their defense, they still would fail. And you only needed 1 success to wipe them out. So your left flank is going to decimate them.
Likewise, I want my right flank to go in and take out their right flank, a pincer maneuver.
Alright.
But I intended to move one of my cavalry units up there to reinforce.
So since this all happens at once, they also get a chance to do something with their left flank, even though at the end, when everything's said and done, you're going to kill them. It is possible you lose people in the process because of what they do. Granted, 1 unit of spearmen against everything you're throwing at them is not very hopeful, but they're going to try. So they try and charge while you're trying to outmaneuver them. And they don't get anything, which is to be expected. So after everything's said and done, after this round, they are gone. And you're going to try and maneuver?
I reinforced my right flank so I could do a proper pincer maneuver.
Okay. How do you want to attack their right flank?
Much in the same way of outmaneuvering them.
Okay. So this time, you'll be adding 2 dice to their 3 maneuver. So here you have a unit of archers, peasants, spearmen, and heavy cavalry. Oh, I see. So it takes a turn to reinforce from the reserves. So these heavy cavalry will be here after that. So right now your maneuver only comprises the archers, peasants, and spearmen. Next turn.
Green is ranged, correct?
Yes. So this right flank as a whole has 3 range attack between mostly their archers and the peasants skirmishing.
Alright, then pelt the right flank with some ranged attacks, the arrows.
Okay. The advantage of range attacks is that they only have half their defense to defend against it. So, your right flank's combined range is 3, so go ahead and roll 3 plus your 2 command die, so 5 dice. And they're going to defend with half their defense. Round it up. Alright, so you netted 1 success, and they only had 1 unit to lose, so they're wiped out too, with no one left here. They are going to spend their turn trying to charge also, so at the end of this turn, they are going to be wiped out, but like I said, you could lose people, even though it's probably becoming apparent that the odds for them winning this are not very good at all. So they have only 1 melee attack with this 1 unit of 500 spearmen against everything that you have. Alright, roll the defense and you can add your command dice. So you're rolling 7 dice to defend against their 1. You really only need 1 success here.
Oh my.
Wow. I did
I'm
not
not quite
expect
sure
that.
how that's possible.
Okay, so the way this works is you choose which unit to sacrifice when you lose a unit.
Peasants.
Okay. That doesn't mean 1,000 people die because of this, it just means the unit is dispersed. Some number die, but overall the unit is broken and otherwise routed. So at the end of this, between them charging and you hitting them with arrows, the peasants end up taking the worst of it from this charge. But the spearmen unit, this right flank, completely collapses, and what survivors there are flee the field, leaving just the center to decide what we be doing with their center. They are a lot more entrenched in either flank.
Are they behind this, or are they hold within a fortress, or not really fortress, the palisade, I mean?
They're fortified behind it, and I have a little cheat sheet on the left of terrain changes. Basically, the net result of this is that they're going to be getting 2 extra defense for all of their rolls. And trying to charge it, you will lose 2 dice. Trying to maneuver it, you will lose 4 dice.
Best option for that is ranged, but they do not necessarily have.
Your center group is not very strong in range. After this whole turn is over, your left and right flank will be able to collapse on the center, and they're going to have major advantages doing that.
I will have the center hold, since it is not beneficial to act right now with.
Okay. They are going to spend the turn trying to rain arrows down upon you with their own archers. So I have you roll your defense +2.
For the center group?
For the center group, yes. Oh, I forgot that defense is halved for archery, so you would normally have 8 dice, roll 4 dice. It is harder to defend against rains of arrows. Still, 2 successes. You're able to hold up against the archer fire. The shields go up and people take cover as best they can. The archer fire has no impact. And that ends the round. So with the left and right flanks collapsed, your left and right flanks now gain 1.5 times their dice when attacking the center.
Sorry, what? The puppy ambushed me.
Oh. So once you've collapsed a flank or a center, you gain an advantage in dice of 1.5 times. So whatever you roll, it's that and half again if you're attacking from like the right flank into the center. Because you're basically collapsing on them from the side.
Aye. Is the heavy cavalry with the right flank at this point?
Yes, at this point, the heavy cavalry are with the right flank. They've moved up.
Alright. Left flank, right flank pincer maneuver.
Okay, we'll finish up the left flank first. It might require the right. So you want to try and maneuver?
Well, it's more they're already in position. It's both sides falling upon the center.
Mm-hmm. I just mean, are you charging them in melee? Are you trying to outmaneuver them? Or are you attacking with range? Maneuver is a way of attacking with, like, outpositioning.
No, not outpositioning. At this point, they should have enough forces to...
Alright, so you want to charge them from the left and right flank?
Yes.
Okay. So, you have 12 in melee. You're gaining 2 from your command dice. That's 14. And it's 1.5 times. So, total of 21 dice. However, they are well entrenched. So because of the palisades and the ditch, you lose 4. So you're rolling 17 dice. They will be rolling to defend. Alright, a net of 3 successes means they lose 3 units. So at the end of this, no matter what, you've wiped out their center. We're just going to see what they can do in this time. They're going to try and charge ahead. But charging from defended palisades is awkward, and they lose a couple dice doing that. They also lose dice because now they're trying to attack across their own ditch. You're rolling 3 dice. Let's go ahead and roll your defense plus 2. Actually, plus 3 because now you have the benefit of the ditch.
Oof.
Alright, so they netted 2 successes. So you'll be choosing 2 of those units that are lost before their center is destroyed.
What is the blue circle again?
The blue first number is defense, second number is maneuver value. Separated by the decimal.
The peasants are the weakest.
Peasants are very weak.
So they'll be the first, the chopping block.
And again, it doesn't necessarily mean 1,000 people die because of this, it just means that you lose them as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And you've won the battle no matter what. At the end of this, whatever they done to you, you've dispersed and routed their men. Killed many of them.
The swordsmen are more well-rounded. I'll have the spearmen take that.
Okay. Alright. And each of these rounds takes a couple hours, so this is about 3, maybe 4 hours of battle, maneuvering and pincering, when eventually battle comes to an end as their entire force collapses. and you hold the field. With some losses, but not nearly as grievous as theirs. In the aftermath, the king is captured. Give me one moment while I review some notes. To get all the details of this. So Warwick, on the left flank, is the one responsible for this major outmaneuvering, attacking through the side and getting into the back lanes, the gardens of the town, and attacking in the market square at the main body of Henry's troops. Somerset, Edmund Beaufort, one of the most influential of the counselors, was seen trying to find refuge at the inn in St. Albans. Your forces surround the building and he tries to escape fighting his way out and manages to kill a few men, but he is struck down, cut down in the streets. The Earl of Northumberland is also killed trying to get there, and Lord Clifford of Skipton, another of these nobles, is hacked to pieces, brutally. The king is captured near the center of town. His men are killed by archer fire, and the king himself is actually wounded briefly, somewhat mildly, before he's captured. It's a major victory for the Yorkists. And by the end of it, by what you can hear, it sounds as though the king has become feeble-minded again, having lost his senses and is supposedly babbling to himself. It is certain that the Duke of York will regain his title as Lord Protector once again. You are commended quietly for your role in commanding this victory. The first battle of the War of the Roses has been won.
While she is immensely glad that her strategy brought about success, it is not inherently surprising to her, considering how outnumbered the opposition was. And she feels like she could have done better.
Robert, would you have remained in the reserve during this time, or would you have tried to join in on the battle?
Reserve.
Probably wise. You did see a few men on the Yorkist side did die from surprising blitz and rushes from the Lancasters. It was not exactly safe out there. What does Robert think of all this after everything's said and done?
It's not surprised that they won. After all, Elined had played a major hand in this. Doesn't really change anything in his mind for the plans. Although Barbaros is looking like a less stable ally.
Make an intelligence politics roll, difficulty 7.
Okay.
Actually, you can both make that roll if you want, Elined. Four from Robert. 2 for Elined. So, Elined, as you may have already been somewhat aware, this was an offensive plan by the Duke of York with your aid, and certainly the advantage was on the Yorkist side for planning an offensive. You don't think that this is all the Lancasters can muster, though. And Robert, you come to the same conclusion, thinking that given what you saw, any obvious lack of familiar Canaanites or cavalry, you think Barbaros was either unaware or unable to better supply this army. You also think that Barbaros, should he want to, could prepare perhaps an equally impressive army, or more so than what was seen here by Ragnar's forces.
All right.
So while you reflect after the battle, we will close this scene. And we will move to somewhere else. Farther north, in Scotland, following Thomas, Cormac, Clyde, and Malcolm as they escape the ravaging hordes of lupines and their allies, leaving behind the forces of the Red Douglases, as well as many other good Scottish families, to an uncertain fate. You ride for hours until you find a lone farmstead. You're at the edge of the woods and you see the woods end here and the hills begin again. Much of this land is very good arable farming land, good for raising crops, good for raising livestock on. And in Scotland, there's not as much of that as in England. So to see this almost reminds you of home, but also reminds you of how little of this you have seen. And Clyde brings his horse to a stop now that you're just at the edge of the wood. He looks back to the two of you. We are in need of cover for the coming day. That might be our best option.
It seems like it would be.
He looks to Thomas then.
How has Malcolm fared?
Malcolm tries to push himself up, looking to you, and you can see, now that you have a better look at him, his throat and jaw are gone. There's a bloody remnant where the lower part of his face and neck was. No blood comes from it, but you can see the bone of part of his jaw and his nose, and the opening in his neck, and much of the flesh rended below that. He does not seem capable of speaking now.
That's why he was asking Clyde.
Clyde kind of looks behind him, then looks back to you. You'll be fine. In time.
Do not believe that I think you a lesser man. And Tom will raise his stump of a left arm. Neither of us fared well.
You could not let good Scots die without trying at least. Clyde says to you.
True enough, but there's little to be done against the lupine.
I've never seen so many those. What was that? We fought lupines before, but he just shakes his head. Never with a band like that. They weren't afraid. You ever heard of anything like that?
Once.
Looks to you curiously.
They were quite motivated against a particular foe. Happily, it wasn't us that time.
I can't say to have hunted lupines many times, but of the times I have not seen the kind alongside them. Let us hope that is the last we see of him. And he pulls gently at the reins to move his horse onward in the direction of the hill where this lone homestead sits.
Cormac gives Thomas a long look, his eyes drifting down to the stump of an arm. He looks irritated, but says nothing as he spurs the horse forward.
Thomas gives kind of an apologetic look, almost as if, well, it doesn't need to be said, but he shrugs and follows.
A group of you ride up the hill to this homestead. Clyde ties the reins up outside. He draws a sword, making his way towards the door. What are the rest of you doing?
Tom's going to dismount and follow after. He'll keep his jacket closed and his arm tucked into his sleeve as best he can.
Cormac dismounts as well, keeping his sword sheathed. He's hoping if there's anyone here that they can just rouse them out.
Clyde does not seem so interested in negotiation or talks. He kicks the door open, which alerts screams from inside. You can hear a woman scream. Malcolm is barely able to get off his horse on his own, and he almost topples over when he lands on the ground. But it looks like Clyde is drawing his second sword and making purposeful steps advancing inward to the sounds of screams. And Thomas is going in behind him?
Yeah, Tom's going to go in behind him. They might be peasants, but Malcolm's in need of blood.
Alright. And Cormac, you're going in with them too?
Cormac is a little bit mad that they seek to do violence to these innocent people, but he will follow them inside.
There's really not much of a fight to be had. It seems like a man and his wife, they're older, late 40s or 50s. It's difficult to tell. Life is difficult out here. Clyde subdues them easily, and a staggering Malcolm comes in to feast hungrily on the man as Clyde holds down the woman and looks to either of you before he begins feeding on her from the back of her neck.
Is there any chance? I'm pretty sure the man's not going to survive, but out of curiosity, do either of them look like they might be Tom's type because he's not doing well?
Very possibly. You know that these kind of sustenance farmers are probably the kind of people who have to do a lot of things themselves, kind of wear many hats. Probably would suffice for Tom's particular palate. Perhaps even the woman. You know, they have to make clothes as well. You join in on the feeding frenzy?
Does it look like Clyde's bound and determined to drink his...
It looks like he hasn't lost control. It's difficult to tell how much he's going to feed exactly, but it doesn't look like he's in a race to drain them or anything.
He'll wait and see if if she's going to die anyway. He'll put her out of her misery rather than let her linger. But if she's going to survive, he's not going to hasten the demise.
He does not take very much. You can tell that she's certainly woozy afterwards, but you think she might actually still be conscious. The man is dead after maybe 15 seconds or so. You can tell just by how emaciated and pale he looks. And Malcolm kind of pulls back. Kind of feels it where his jaw is very slowly starting to form back, but you can tell it's far from functional.
Tom will take one blood point from the woman.
Alright, how hungry are you?
That is an excellent question. Just under half.
Let's see here.
Depending on how you do math.
Give me a self-control roll difficulty 5. Not just the hunger, but the desperation of the situation may drive your beast to want more. One success. You're able to keep it in check. You know your beast wants to eat more. This is a dangerous situation to be in, but you're in control right now. What is Cormac doing during this time?
Cormac is standing off to the side, his arms crossed, waiting for it to be over. He himself is not hungry, having sated himself on the soldier on the battlefield.
Malcolm seems to have pressed himself up against one of the walls, sitting there, looking off in thought, still looking even more monstrous now, with still most of his jaw gone, but now even further bloodied by a very messy feeding. There's this big bloody mess below his upper lip. Clyde pulls back from the woman. Soul basement. It'll have to do. We'll have to hope that no one's checking on this during the day. I'll see the bar the doors.
Tom's gonna move to help Malcolm up.
He accepts your help and slowly gets up. He eyes you for a bit, Cormac, meeting your gaze briefly.
Cormac's characteristic grin is missing. He still has a look of irritation. When he meets the prince's eyes, he does nod slightly.
Clyde sets about gathering supplies to bar and reinforce the door to this very simple home. You see it's tall enough to be 2 stories, but really the inside is just a kind of a loft upstairs. There isn't really a true second story, just more space. It's fairly warm in here. The hearth is going with a good fire. There's still food on the table. Looks like they were having some porridge of some kind. Most of it's gone. They were woken during the night and still wearing their night gowns. The bed is unmade where they came out. It's all kind of one room, except for it does look like there is some kind of very small basement that goes downward. You kind of have to duck your head to fit into it. More of a storage shed beneath this level than a full room of any kind. It's stocked with some grains, oats, There isn't a whole lot here of interest. There's no silver. You know that dawn is coming soon. And we'll put you all into sleep. Is there anything either of you wish to do before then? It looks like Malcolm and Clyde are setting about reinforcing things where they can and then preparing places to stay in this very cramped little storage basement.
Cormac will help them as best he can, then allow the prince and his man to pick the best spots.
Tom will do so as well, though he's less help due to one missing arm.
Alright. The best spot down here basically comprises a corner of the room in between a barrel and some crates. There's nothing very comfortable down here. The stone floor is uncomfortable, certainly, but fortunately, you don't have muscles that will ache or any other such things to concern yourself with. It's a quiet and sullen mood. The feeling of defeat is not one you've felt many times, Cormac. Now that you think of it, you've known mostly victory in your battles. To have lost so much is a bit foreign.
Had it been Irish blood that was spilt, Cormac might have been on the verge of frenzying. As it is, his irritation at Malcolm losing so many men is evident, but he decides to keep his tongue for tonight. Let the man recuperate a little bit.
Right. The day eventually brings you all into sleep. Passes over you into the next evening. You may take off a blood point as you rise for this evening. You awaken, of course, into almost pure darkness. Of course, there's no light down here. But the sound of rustling and eventually the movement of this wooden hatch opens up some ambient light from above. You can see that Clyde and Malcolm are making their way up, setting about getting candles and more light in here.
Cormac will grab a sack of grain to feed the horses. Surely they have places to graze, but they'll want some more sturdy sustenance.
I know what you're thinking. You hear from Malcolm, although the voice is more distorted as he turns to you. And you can see that much of his jaw is still missing, but enough of his bones and his tongue have returned that he can make out words. Although the sight is still a little bit unsettling. You're thinking me foolhardy. For even trying.
I followed you. Who's more the fool?
We have fought with them for generations. I was not about to let my people die without joining. I will not surrender the land to those things.
And I was not about to let you engage such a thing on your own.
He looks to you and nods, half of his face still gone. Half of his throat still ripped open. Aye. You could have gone, taken the horses and ran.
Aye, I could have. But it's not in my character to do so.
I'll not be forgetting that you didn't.
Our heritage isn't so different. My father's line is from Old Gaul.
He smirks, looking to Clyde briefly, although the smirk is still very distorted. It's not entirely clear at first he is smirking. Couldn't have guessed I'd have been back to back with an Englishman against lupines.
We're both Celts in the end. I have just a little bit more Roman blood than you, that's all.
We should not tarry here very long. What I have learned in my time is that these things, they travel, they claim great scapes of land. We are likely still somewhere nearby where they call home.
If we ride hard and ghoul the horses, how long before you think we might reach Edinburgh, or a city of substance?
We should be able to reach something in a couple nights. The important thing right now is we get far away from here. But mark my words, Englishman. We will be back here.
And I'll be happy to be at your side again when that time comes.
He nods once after a moment. He reaches up to feel at his face and moves slowly at a bit of a limp step. Clyde's been standing there kind of listening quietly, with his hands resting on his blades, not aggressively, but more out of comfort, you think. He looks to you and nods and follows after Malcolm. They both depart. And Cormac, I know you said you were going outside, but you have a moment with Thomas after the two of them leave, before you've gone outside.
How many men do you think we lost?
2, maybe 300.
Shakes his head. Too damned many.
A damn sight fewer than we'll lose by the end of all this.
I wonder if he'll be able to drum up such an army again so easily.
Never underestimate the willingness of Scots to fight.
It's just a damn shame. Seems that everywhere we go, there's those lupines. They're a blight.
I'm beginning to grow less and less fond of them myself.
You were fond of them to start with?
I thought they might be a resource to start with that's becoming less an option. I'd almost thought I'd struck a chord with that one.
I saw that. Didn't quite work the way you expected, though.
No. My shirt and coat paid the price. And he'll spread the jacket a bit. There's a bit of a scar left behind from where he was cleaved, and the bindings hiding the truth are obviously shredded, doing nothing to help anymore.
How does one defeat the undefeatable?
Ragnar's managed to find a way.
Well, we can't bloody well ask her.
She's near as much told me.
Has she mentioned any weaknesses?
No, she relies on blood magic.
Blood magic. All I know for certain is that I hit that bastard with all my strength, and he flinched it off there like it was nothing.
I damn near took the thing's arm off, and it regrew.
In any case, Malcolm will think twice before taking that route again.
At least until he's rallied more men.
There has to be a more well-traveled path, even if it takes longer.
It's definitely something to bring up with him. I don't know the area well enough to say for sure.
Well, anyway, the night is wasting. Let's meet up with them before they leave without us.
And many miles to go before we sleep.
And much more dangerous now, without anyone to look after us during the day.
Aye. Best to put as many miles behind us as possible. Tom will gesture for Cormac to lead the way.
And he will do so.
All right. You leave behind the still mostly drained bodies of the man and the woman. The man entirely evacuated of blood. The woman clearly in no good health, if she isn't dead already. Left on the floor of their home. And the door closes behind you. You see that Malcolm and Clyde have readied the horses, and in fact found another, it seems. There was one tied up at the back of the house, which Malcolm mounts up on. The moon is shining as it was the previous night, and gives you some light for the travel ahead. And in a very somber fashion, the group of you depart from the lone homestead of this unknown and now dead couple, riding back north in the hopes of civilization. And the scene will fade on the four riders. At that, we will end the scene and end the session, and we will pick it up next week.
Sweet.
Good game.
It was a fun game, but tense. On both sides.
Tense games are, I think, fun.
Yeah, apparently you do.
I hope other people find it fun.
I mean, there's excitement to it.
I'll take it.
It's stressful, let's put it that way.
Near death, explosions, werewolves, excitement. Yeah.
Well, considering this is game 33 and otherwise, I think you guys have had a pretty safe existence.
I mean, yeah.
At least to obvious threats. Maybe not to less obvious threats. But anyway.
Lupines twice.
You know, no one held a gun to your head and said, follow this Scotsman into the countryside of the South Uplands, so that's on you. So we'll do 3 experience all around. I think people survived or were otherwise involved in some pretty heavy stuff or otherwise enlightening stuff, or one way or another. And we'll do some entertaining role players. Start with Rob.
Give it to Thomas for holding his ground as he found it out of his character to just flee and throw others in the path of the werewolf.
Cool. Thomas?
I'm going to give it to Elined. She's definitely kind of coming into her own finally and actually playing into her niche.
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones style.
Absolutely. Elined, what about you?
I was going to give it to Thomas as well for the combat as a whole.
I gotta say, I am really surprised he survived as long as he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Melee specialty parry.
No. Cormac.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to Thomas too for the Darth Vader act, holding up his sword until his arm got cut off.
It was pretty hardcore. Cool. Alright, and like I said, 3 all around. Great game. I think at least I had fun, so that's the important part to me.
I had fun, just stressed.
Good.
Ragnar's just waiting there. I mean, it's obvious trap with that door unlocked. Damn it.
Noticed that, did you? Cool. Good
Hindsight
game.
being 2020 and all.
Alright. Great game. I'll talk to you guys throughout the week and we'll play again next week.
Like this.
Alright.
Good night.
Night.